adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Okay, good morning, councillors. We'll kick off with the Infrastructure Committee meeting with the absence of Councillor Williams, the Mayor, and the Acting Mayor, Neil Fisher. We need to elect a chair for this committee, so can I?
I'd like to nominate Councillor Smith, who is the Chair for Infrastructure, to chair this meeting for Infrastructure.
Seconded by Councillor Latcham. All in favour? Done. Okay. See how you go.
Well, good morning everybody and welcome to the Infrastructure Committee meeting, 4th of October. Probably not too many more till the end of the year, Peter. Next couple might be big meetings. I'd like to firstly acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today, the Drumbul people, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. I extend that respect to the neighbouring Aboriginal peoples within our local government area, the Gangaloo Nation people and Barada, Kalbara and Yetamala people, and also acknowledge the Torres Strait Islander people whose land is in the Torres Strait but who live and work on Aboriginal land. So we don't need to declare any apologies and leaves of absence. Previously, Councillor Grant Mathers has been approved leave of absence, and the Mayor, Councillor Williams and Councillor Fisher, the Deputy Mayor, are in Brisbane attending the International Land Defence Exposition, which we voted for them to attend because it's a very, very important function that we need to be seen at. So they're going to be away today and tomorrow. So confirmation of minutes of previous meeting, I'm happy to move those if I could seek a seconder. Councillor Kirkland, all those in favour? Thank you. Declarations of interest in matters on the agenda. I have a conflict of interest in 10.1 project delivery, September 22, regarding the Mount Morgan water security. So if we could maybe vote on that last, on that list. I think, as I said before, with our previous training, it's not if you're going to discuss it. If it's on the list, you've got a conflict. So, and that's my prescribed conflict of interest, because my nephew is a partner in MTC Industries, who have a contract to cart water to Mount Morgan, but also the proposed pipeline goes along Cabra Road, where my brother owns a property at 248 Cabra Road, and also goes along Moomira Road, where my sister and brother-in-law, Trish and Don McKinnon, own a property on the corner of Moomira and Poison Creek Roads. And I'll deal with the conflict by leaving the room and staying away from the place where the meeting is being held when the matter is being discussed and voted on. But we'll have to wait for Councillor Rutherford, otherwise we won't have a quorum if I leave the room. So if we can come to that one, other than that one, yeah. So any other conflicts of interest? Councillor Latcham.
Thanks, Madam Chair. And I also have a prescribed conflict of interest in item 8.5, the School Transport Infrastructure Program for Frenchville State School Set Down Area Project. This prescribed conflict of interest arises as my daughter Savannah Latcham attends Frenchville State School. I'll deal with the conflict by leaving the room and staying away from the place where the meeting is being held when this matter is being discussed and voted on.
So you'll have to be away for the whole of that program?
Well, I was hoping...
No, we're not necessarily, because we're not voting on priorities, are we, Peter? We're not putting them in priority order. So if you want to leave, and then we'll discuss the others, and then we'll discuss yours, and then bring you back, yeah. No business outstanding, no public forums or deputations, no presentation of petitions, no councillor or delegate reports, officers' reports, project delivery, capital project report for September. And look at Andrew. Thank you, Andrew. If we could discuss all except Mount Morgan water security, please.
Certainly. Thanks, Madam Chair, councillors. So just going to present the capital project report for September. So the hail damage insurance claim, so that project or program's now nearing completion. I think there's still a bit of work to be done on the main waste transfer station roof, and the Waveridge is programmed to be re-roofed end of this week. There's still a bit of minor works to be done at Kershaw Gardens on the sandstone amenities. Victoria Park is now complete, and the only other outstanding project we'd have is North Rocky Sewage Treatment Plant, so we'll just work with the other contractors on site to program that project. The Alliance Maintenance Facility, so that's now in its final stages. So BMD, our civil contractor, they're programmed to demobilise from site end of this month, and Aaron's, who are constructing the hangar, they're also in the final stages. All the external cladding's been completed, the roof's on. They're now moving to clad the main hangar doors. The internal fit out's around about 95% complete, and they too expect to be off site by Christmas time. Botanic Gardens and Zoo redevelopment. So the visitor hub and operations centre, that's currently out to market, and it closes I think on the 2nd of November. So we've had site visits and site inspections with that project. Package 3, which is a playground, so civil works will start on that project this week. So the surveying and some earth clearing will happen. And package 4, the enclosure refurb, now that we've got the resolution from council in relation to reallocation of that Works for Queensland money, we'll look at doing the Eagle enclosure. Mount Morgan Water Treatment Plant, so work's continuing on that project. The dosing shed has been finalised and commenced to be fitted out. They're still doing some demolition in the control room area. The new access stairs have been installed in the line room, and that's been handed back to FRW. and we're now working with them in relation to some methodologies around refurbishing the filter banks at that plant. Gracemere and South Rockhampton STP strategy. So this covers a number of projects. So the new caustic soda dosing system, so we have prelim designs for that finished, and a new wet well for the sludge pump station. So planning works undertaken with that. Hunter H2O have delivered an interim report on various upgrade requirements for that plant. The design installation of penstocks, so that variation's been issued to Haslam. They're just working on a methodology now for installation, looking at early November. Once that installation's done, then obviously we're about to do some condition assessments on the replacement of those current diffusers. Sludge lagoons, so Gracemere, all the work at Gracemere is just about finished now. The company has done a lot of work over at North Rocky. The first pond is still in progress, and they've commenced some earthworks and site works over at South Rocky. The sewer diversions from Gracemere to South Rocky, so geotech for the new pump station there has been completed. Survey work, I understand, is underway. There's been some prelim design work done in-house by our design office, and we'll look at engaging Hunter H2O to finalise the pump station shortly. Arthur Street, so Arthur Street, the design's been completed on that, and we anticipate to try and get out to put the tender package together now to get going to the market around about the 14th of October. Glenmore Water Treatment Plant Solar Farm, so that tender package has been put together and it's out to the market. It'll close on the 19th of October. Mount Morgan Pool, we've got that community information session, I understand, scheduled for around about the 3rd and 4th of November. We've basically put together the performance specification and tender package. I think we'll look at probably around about the 11th, having that ready to go to market and try and close that just before Christmas. North Rocky Sewage Treatment Plant, so work continues on over there. They're in the final stages of piling now, working through a lot of the ditch and reactor structures. We have issued a variation to do additional piling for a HV room, so the contractor will just work through that with us. And Rockhampton Airport parking, so that project's basically now completed. So I think it's just a bit of IT, finalising a few of the IT aspects of the programs associated with that project.
That's
Thank
it, Andrew. Thank you very much for that. Any questions, Councillor? Yes, Councillor Latcham.
Thanks, Madam Chair, and through you through to Andrew. Andrew, the solar farm out near Bouldercombe, is that council doing that or is that someone else's project?
Through the chair, I don't believe it's council's project.
It's not?
No.
It's okay. It's just I noticed they started work on it.
Sorry, I have a conflict of interest with that one.
Just
It's
a general question.
near my cousin's place, yeah. I can,
And council's not doing it.
No.
might be able to get some information. Councillor Kirkland.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I was just hoping that you could probably unpack a little bit, if you wouldn't mind, if it's possible, the Glenmore Water Treatment Plant and those filter works that are being planned. I've had a little chat with Peter around what that is and what's happening in that filter space. Could you just unpack that for the table this morning a bit, please?
Okay, well, there's two things. What Andrew's talking about is we've got to get an agreed process by the contractor of how they will work on those filters, and because we have to control how they do it and when they do it. So they're submitting a program and a work practice of how that will do, and we have to sign that off. They're working on that still at the moment. The second component is, in parallel, not necessarily to do with that contract, we are looking at, we are undertaking some cleaning of the old filter material to improve performance. We've just done that on one filter, and that's being tested now to see how much improvement we get. So there's two actions. One's the contract to replace and restore, and the second is an interim measure just to clean the existing filters.
If I can, through you.
Yes.
Chair. So when we visited the water treatment plant, the question was asked about delays and of all of what was planned being delivered.
Yep.
Are you anticipating that this is going to result in some delays? And if there's going to be delays, what does that do as far as the project and its delivery is concerned? What type of impacts has that got for the community?
At the moment, no impact. All we're doing is we've said we're coming into a busy summer period. We won't let the contractor take off more than one cell at any one time for works. So that way we make sure we've got enough cells running to meet the demand of the water, and we will get them to be more active post-March next year through that winter period to do the remainders of those meetings.
Through you, Madam Chair. So originally it was that those works would be finished by now, but they've not been. Was that not the case?
No, that's not. There was originally planned to do a few before.
A few. Yeah.
Not all 10 or no. So it's always going to be do some before summer and then do some after summer. All that's happening now is we're probably going to only do one before summer.
Yep.
And do the rest post summer.
Okay. So to be clear, the project is not delayed at all.
The overall project is delayed. Yeah.
That's what
But we revised the program by 6 months or 3 months, Andrew. I can't remember the date.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's not so much to do with this as they are, like many of these people, having very big difficulty sourcing and getting supply. That's the driving thing of delay, is getting equipment.
Alrighty, I think it's great for the table to have an understanding of that and to be in the back of our minds understanding that there is delays and that with every delay there comes an added aspect, I suppose, of an element of risk, but not great risk, you're saying?
Not great risk, and these delays aren't, the cost delays are being borne by the contractor.
By the
not council.
contractor, which is great. Great, thank you. Madam Chair, I just have one other question about
Yeah,
the
sure.
airport, if I might. Thank you, through you to Andrew. Just with the airport, it's been great. I had the opportunity last week to go out there and see that some of the changes, the new facilities, and one of those is the new paying boxes. And I remember that they were going to have some special deals for people in the community, and there was going to be a whole range of other benefits of coming out and parking at the airport. Are those things going to be initiated soon? Is that still on the cards? Pardon the pun?
I'm sorry, Councillor, the operational side of it, I have no.
Don't know?
No.
Oh, okay.
I can answer that one if you like,
It's
Councillor.
Ross.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure, Ross.
Hang on, I'll put my picture on.
Can't see you.
Yeah, I don't have much of an answer, just they're still working on that. This project, the parking project itself is still, it's not finished yet, the parking meter, so that sort of packages and so forth are being worked through at this moment. So I don't have what they'll look like, but yeah, they're definitely on the agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I've just got a couple, Andrew, just probably small things. The Alliance Maintenance Facility, I think there was supposed to be over 100 people employed in the construction. I'm just thinking about parking, and I went past the long-term park a couple of times last week, and I noticed it's fairly well used. Are they all parking there? And when it's completed, because it's ages since we've seen a plan of the whole thing, is there going to be enough parking there so they're not taking up other parks, I suppose?
Yeah, through the chair, there's a dedicated car park for the facility at the front of the facility.
Yeah, so it's a fair few.
Top of my head, I couldn't
yeah.
see a number of cars, but it's certainly.
Yeah, I can
met all
imagine
the
it'd be the right
requirements,
number.
Yeah.
Yes. So they're not using that, they're using the long term at present, or?
No,
No,
Oh, they're
not.
parking.
they're
at
parking
front?
on site.
Wow, we've got some cars using
Long-term
a
is
car
just
park.
normal long-term. It's not
Yeah,
the contract.
okay, great. The other one was, just in general, we've got some funding for the North Rocky sewage treatment plant. I just wondered, is there any other opportunities to get any more funding, Peter, for Gracemere, South Rocky, or any more for North Rocky, stages of North Rocky?
Through the chair, we have a number of grants active at the moment that are lodged.
Yeah,
So,
grants I was thinking of, yeah.
One was building our regions. It
Yeah.
hasn't been announced yet. And we are looking at, we're looking at every opportunity, but there's another one under the Great Barrier Reef federal
Right,
funding.
yes, I think we talked about that one
So we're
before,
looking
yeah.
at how to, whether we can fit that requirements and,
Yeah.
and lodge some additional grant applications.
Great. So I need to leave the room now. Is there no more questions? I think. Oh, sorry. So we need to elect a chair to chair the meeting for the Mount Morgan Water Security. Would someone like to nominate someone to just to chair the meeting for that one, please? I'll nominate. You nominate Councillor Wickerson. Can I have I'll second that. All those in favour?
You just got to come back to one thing. You haven't done this report. Move all of the items.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Sorry. Get ahead of myself. So the recommendation, we need to read the recommendation first. Sorry, it's a while since I've been in the chair. That the project delivery monthly report, except the Mount Morgan Water Security for September 2022 be received. Would someone like to? Councillor Latcham, seconded Councillor Kirkland. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried unanimously. Now can I leave? Oh, sorry. Yes, it is too. Okay. So you'd like to nominate Councillor Kirkland and seconded Councillor Latcham. All those in favour? Thank you. Councillor Kirkland. And seconded Councillor Latcham. Sorry, Karen. I do have a habit of rambling through. That's it.
Okay, well, thanks everybody. Let's just keep the ball rolling and we'll get Andrew to give us a delivery of the capital project report for the Mount Morgan water security. Thanks, Andrew.
So the detailed design continues on that project. Package C, which is the Mount Morgan works, received the detailed design for that. That package now. Package B, which is the unit race back and contracted portion, we received that design package previously on Friday. So we'll go through a process of reviewing that, finalising that, and hoping to get that over. And the pyramid of the pipes is currently out as close to Want me to repeat on that? So yeah, that's that
Alrighty,
project.
well, that's great news, Andrew, and then that pipe procurement tender is out, so we won't know really what the potential delivery delays on that pipe will be until those tenders come in, is that correct?
That's correct. So once we get that, we'll assess, I suppose, those offers in relation to obviously the cost and the time impacts on the project and do the assessment based on that.
Alright, Great to see that project moving along. Councillor Wickerson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through to Andrew. When we spoke about this last, Andrew, there's no manufacturers of ductile iron pipe in Australia that we know of that's viable to do, which is disappointing, but it's what it is. I understand there might be a mix of ductile iron pipe and other materials. Do we know what that split is and if the other type of pipes are available in Australia?
Through the chair, no, we don't necessarily know the exact split,
No.
but yes, I mean, plastic is manufactured here. There may be ductile iron available locally, but the full quantum, I suppose, is not known. So, I mean, we've obviously got the local preference, all those sort of criteria in the tender. So, if it can be procured here, then
I guess until the tenders come in, we won't know who's interested in doing it, so we'll have to wait and see what comes in. So could it be two separate suppliers, or two separate contracts if there are two different types of pipe, or do most pipe places?
Yeah, most of them will provide either or. So.
Okay, no, that's great, thank you.
Alrighty, thanks, Councillor Wickerson. Peter, got something to add to that?
Yeah, just through the chair, I've just corrected the title of the project. There's no and. Okay, so the project is no longer Mount Morgan Water Security. In our operational plan and all references, it's Mount Morgan Water Supply Pipeline. The water security project was the business case, just for clarity, so that when we talk to the community, we're talking about a water supply pipeline now. Okay, otherwise we're going to get confused. Yep.
Thanks for that, Peter. That's a big thing for us all to note. Alrighty, so no further questions. Let's keep going, and I'll happy to move that the project delivery monthly report for September 2022, Mount Morgan Water Supply Pipeline, be received. And I have a seconder. That's Councillor Rutherford.
Oh, yeah.
And we'll put that, all those in favour? And that's carried. We might invite Councillor, are you happy, Karen? That was carried. And we'll invite Councillor Smith back in to resume the chair. Can I just say that was very exciting. It's been a long time since I chaired a meeting. Thank you.
On to 10.2, and it's contamination management in the recycle bin. So over to you, Michael. Thank you. One of your favourite subjects is contamination?
It is. I'm very excited about this one. No, thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, councillors. So the purpose of this report is really just to give councillors an idea of what our current process is. This process has not changed for probably 3 to 4 years. We have been implementing this process as it's presented here today. So we do an annual audit of both the red-lidded bin and the yellow-lidded bin. We'll be doing a further audit in about 3 months' time from now. The last audit, we found that we had around 22 to 23% contamination in the yellow-lidded bin, and that has fluctuated between around 17 and that 22, 23% over the last sort of 4 to 5 years that I've been here. Obviously, with that, incurs a significant cost. We're processing around 4,500 tonnes of recyclables per year at a nominal 20% contamination rate. That's a little under 900 tonnes per year of contamination out of that yellow-lidded at the current gate fees that we're paying. That's about $260,000 worth of direct costs. And there are a lot of indirect costs as well that come along with that contamination. So, you know, managing contamination or trying to do our best to resolve the contamination issue in that bin is obviously of high importance. One exciting thing, or I'm going to say it's an exciting thing, and it's taken probably 12 months of lobbying from myself and a number of my colleagues from other large regional councils is that the state government is just kicking off, or around 3 months ago just kicked off, an education behaviour change initiative with their state waste levy funding. They've also announced $16.5 million worth of funding for this over the next 4 years. So this education behaviour change initiative is helped to assist in the implementation of our regional plan. Once that's finalised towards the end of this year, the process is underway. We've had a number of meetings already. It's designed to try and set some specific actions identified relating to establishing clear and consistent messaging, not just within each local government area, but across local government areas. We know that people move, not only between local government areas, but also coming from interstate. So trying to get clear messaging is very important. And it's a multi-year, 10-year campaign. Okay, so we know now that we can't just have a quick blitz and everyone will get it and then we can just move on to something else. We've got to actually implement a long-term, sustainable sort of messaging out there around how to use our curbside collection system. The other really important thing around this is to make sure that we start this very quickly, so that in the event that we end up with a third bin on the curb, that we're not just adding to the current level of confusion, we're actually trying to transition our community through, so we've got some level of success. The state government's also doing a regulatory review at the moment, and there's some conversation with myself and some other colleagues from other large regional councils in that regulatory review, and there's some conversation around actually making it an offence to put contamination in a bin. So how that will be enforced, I guess that's a challenge we will face if that becomes an offence. But yeah, there's certainly some conversation around that. We then talk about what's an acceptable recyclable material. I won't go into that, however it is confusing, and I'm going to put my hand up and say particularly around the plastics. It's very, very confusing. I personally would like to try and limit the plastics that are going into the yellow leaded bin to purely be household food and beverage containers only, and remove all the soft plastics to try and make that messaging much clearer. And there is also that conversation happening at the state level to see, again, I don't want sort of Rocky to go out on a loan, particularly if we're all sharing the same MRF with the other Central Queensland councils. There's not much point in Rocky doing it if Livingston, Gladstone, Central Highlands don't follow suit. And my strong preference would be that it's actually followed suit up and down the coast. This program is really around only targeting major contamination. So we're talking, 50% plus of the bin being occupied by a contaminant, such as, tree branches, palm fronds hanging out the top, big lumps of polystyrene, etc. Some medium quantities from, a third or one quarter up to 1/2 of other non-recyclable materials. And then if we can identify any prominent single items that we know will cause damage to the MRF, like batteries or large metal engine components or the like. So the process basically includes 4 stages, and it very much relies on our recycling collections contractor identifying the contamination. So once if they identify contamination, they record it in their in-vehicle management system, and then we get a report at the end of every day telling us, which properties have been identified for presenting a majorly contaminated bin. On the first occasion, we'll actually put a sticker, and we've got pre-signed sort of letters that go onto those bin, and that's really just trying to take a fairly soft approach, trying to provide useful information for the resident to better understand how they're supposed to use that service, and also offering to the resident that if they take the contaminants out of the bin, that will go back on the same day or the next day at no cost. On the second occasion, again, they get a sticker, and they get a letter. The letter for the second occasion actually will include a photograph of the contaminants in their bin, so they actually know that we can see the contents in their bin to make it a little bit more real for them. And if they want us to return for a service, we will charge a fee. On the third occasion, again, there's a sticker in a letter, but we will actually then ring them and we'll try and organise a site visit to their property to go have a conversation with them to understand their barriers and their challenges around using the service and to try and give them assistance to use that service appropriately. And then on the fourth occasion, we will remove the bin. In my time here, we have not removed any bins. Okay, so it's probably more seen as a threat than reality, although we would do it if we had to. But yeah, at the moment, we're sort of being able to get some success through the first 3 stages of this process. So I think there's a lot of attachments there. I've included attachments there showing you what the bin sticker looks like and the 4 letters, but probably just happy to take any questions from there, Madam Chair.
Okay, thanks very much, Michael. Councillor Latcham, I think you had yours on first.
Well, thanks, Madam Chair. It's through to Michael. Michael, thanks for bringing this to our attention. It was nice to see the policy brought to our attention, and because yeah, even some of these things I wasn't fully aware of, so it's nice to know the process, and it's good to know that we haven't ever had to get to the 4th occasion. My question, I guess, is that for life on that property? Is it that property that gets on the system that they get the first, second, third occasion, or is there a period of time where that lapses and it starts from 0 again? And the second part of my question, if I could, is rentals in particular, where they change over every 12 months or 6 months or whatever. If they've offended, does it stick to that property? And how do you know that someone else has now moved in?
Good question.
Yeah, good question. Through the chair, I think that all comes out through the third stage where we actually ring them up and have that conversation. And I think if they're saying, "Oh, look, we rent and we only moved in 2 months ago and we've never received a letter before," then we use common sense and we'll adjust the register to remove the prior offences from that register and then start again. In terms of a blanket period, yeah, we're typically working off 12 months. Yeah, so 1, 2, 3, 4 offences within 12 months.
Okay, Councillor Kirkland.
Oh, thanks, Madam Chair. I've got a few questions.
Yeah.
So my first question is kind of related, but not necessarily. I'm just noting that the target is 2050 for zero waste, and noting that there's been that ramping up with the state announcements just recently, and talking about state facilities and government facilities having to achieve 80% by 2030. By 2030. Does that mean that needs to be revisited, the zero waste, or is it separate?
Again, through the chair, we will be revisiting our strategy. Under the regulation, we need to review our strategy each 3 years. It was first adopted because in December 2019, so we're up for 3 years anyway. The state government, their strategy was released first in July 2019, which set the zero waste to landfill by 2050 target and all the targets that sort of flow on from that. So they're reviewing their strategy at the moment as well, and all of their targets. So we're kind of sitting and waiting a little bit to see what their targets are before we'll come back to council with what we think our new targets should be. You may recall in a report I presented some time ago, 6-9 months ago, around Lakes Creek Road landfill and the challenges we've got out there around longevity. We're working on that, and I won't be able to come back to council with a firm life expectancy figure until probably June of next year. But my current expectation is that won't last till 2050.
Right.
So putting all of the state targets aside, we may need to bring our target forward purely based around the longevity of Lakes Creek Road landfill.
Thank you. My reason for asking that is because it then places further emphasis on the need to be removing as much as we possibly can from the landfill as quick as we possibly can. And these types of measures, whilst they might seem extreme, and the public may very well think being fined and that sort of thing is not nice and it's forceful, it is really imperative that we understand the pressures that are coming not just from that local issue of not having the space, but also from the state legislation that's going to be pushing down through to government-owned facilities very quickly.
Yeah, 100%. And the other really important part of this education behaviour change initiative that's being driven by the state is not just a yellow-lidded bin, it's a red-lidded bin. Because again, from those annual audits, we know that we've got about 17% of the red-lidded bin content should be in the yellow-lidded bin. And 17% may not sound a lot, but because we're doing 24,000 tonnes a year, we've actually got just as many, just by tonnage comparison, we've got just as much recyclables in the red-lidded bin as we do the yellow-lidded bin. So
that would be 40% that we could remove, essentially, up to 40% that we could remove from landfill if we were to get those two things right.
yeah, if we can get the 17% of recyclables out of the red-lidded bin into the yellow-lidded bin, and get the 50% of organics out of the red-lidded bin, then we...
On the way.
On the way.
Okay, well, I'm glad that you mentioned those percentages because that leans into my next question, which is about the Rockhampton Regional Council rate of contamination. How does that compare to other LGAs?
Oh, look, it's all over the place, to be honest. And as a part of this education behaviour change initiative, we've set up about 6 different benchmarking measures across the 7 large regional councils that are participating in that with the state, to try and benchmark some of these, and that's one of those measures. Probably the best I've heard is around 10%. The worst I've heard is in the low 30s.
Okay. So it's about average. Well, the reason I ask that question is because we keep touting as being leaders in this area, Rocky Regional Council, and setting the standard, I suppose. And so I would expect that our reduction from landfill would be the best. But if it's still in the middle, I'm just wondering, sure that you've started to identify the flags in that are the reasoning, and how come we're not the 10%?
One of the really, and probably the reason why I said I was excited about this initiative that the state government's running at the moment, they're going to be doing a series of surveys and focus groups to try and actually understand, rather than just coming up with what do we think the key messages need to be, let's try and understand what the barriers are first. Like, why are people not using the bin correctly? Is it because, they're confused, because there could be multiple different reasons, but let's actually understand those barriers. And then from that, we'll develop the messaging. So I think that's a key first step. And then there'll be a repeat survey or focus group each year to go back to see whether, we've understood this, we've come up with these messages, we've implemented something for 12 months, and then we're going to go back again and survey and do all of that to see whether we're actually making any headway or not. And then if we need to tweak the messages or tweak the campaign, then that'll be done based on those sort of periodic check-ins.
It's excellent. It's really good. Through you, Madam Chair, there's just a couple. How will the residents know that there is an audit? I've got written here. So are the residents aware that there's... what my understanding is, you do a manual audit where people go out, lift the lids of the bins and have a look. But then there's also the operator in camera that does it as well. Is that right?
The audit that determines the percentage of contamination or the composition of that bin is actually, we go out and we predefine certain collection areas, and we go and pick up 250 bins of each and the corresponding waste and recycling bin from properties. We bring them back to the transfer station, we drop them on the ground, and we pick through them with hands and separate it into all the different compositions, and they all get weighed individually and then accumulated and calculated out. And no, we don't tell the residents.
Right. And does that include the ones that will, like, as far as this program we're talking about here, as far as picking up people who have contaminated waste and putting a tag on their bin and that sort of thing? Is that the process, or is it the in-camera process that's going to identify those contaminated bins?
It's if the lid's fully open, because it's got a 6 metre palm frond hanging out the top, they'll get out and they'll sticker the lid and they'll put the letter pack on it and they'll take a photo of it as evidence. If the lid is closed and therefore they're not going to get out and lift every lid before they flip it, they will then identify it as they're dropping it into the truck, and then it has to be fairly obvious. So if they see something fairly large and foreign that shouldn't be in there, they'll then capture the photographic record of it in the hopper of the truck before it gets pushed into the body, and then when they put the bin back on the curb, they'll then get out and put a sticker and a letter on it.
Wow. Okay, thank you.
Which it's a lot of work when you're picking up 7,000 bins a day. Like, you don't want your truck driver getting out of that truck.
Yeah. As you've identified, though, if we can have these plastics correct, then we can make money out of that as well. There's revenue to be made as well, which is a great sell, I think. Final question, thank you, Madam Chair, is when you were talking about soft plastics being mingled with the hard plastics and your desire to have that removed out of the bin, were you talking about the plastic bags and such that we should normally be separating and taking to Coles for the
Yeah,
red
it could go
recycle?
to recycle, correct.
Right, okay, so that's probably just that education again.
The education again, but again, we're sort of trying to work through the state and saying, you know, you need to be putting more pressure on the packaging covenant to actually remove some of these materials from the waste stream. You know, why do we need, you know, you go to Coles or Woolies and you'll see fruit inside a tray, inside a plastic bag. Why? You know, it's just waste.
Yeah. Oh, I appreciate everything you're doing, and your entire team are doing a lot of work. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor McKirkland. Councillor Wickerson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through to Michael too. Michael, I must feel your frustration. You've done a ton of work, and your team have done a ton of work over a long period of time to try and get that messaging out. And I was only thinking the other day, because I ran into the son of Greg Merry. I think you might remember. Remember, Greg was the head of health many, many years ago when I worked here the first time. His young teenage son, did some animation and work for our program then. He's now 42 years old. This guy, so it goes back a fair way, so I understand the frustration. But like you said, it must be terribly exciting though to see that the state is putting some support and resources and some serious money into a statewide scheme, and that's going to be so important because that consistency across the state takes a lot of the burden off us, not all of it. But so I guess the question in that is that, and it's great that we're liaising with that to have input into how that scheme might look and the foundation behind it. But will there become a time when we've got to put some resources in as well? Like, we're going to do a local media campaign. I don't know, you said 10 years it's going to be rolled out, but I guess we won't have to wait 10 years to see something on the ground for that, I hope. So, but will we have to depend on our budget as well to put ads on TV? And colleague Councillor Rutherford reminded me that we did talk a number of years ago about larger bin stickers, maybe identifying, you know, what are the right and wrong things to go in a bin. And if we rationalise that, so it's not so much to read through different types of plastics or whatever, which is a good idea to keep it a bit more simpler, can we revisit that larger sticker as part of this re-education program? Because it's important to get that messaging out simply.
That was a fairly large question.
Yeah, sorry about that.
But,
I realised
have a
halfway
go.
through.
So, look, yes, part of the 6 different measures that we're trying to benchmark across the 7 large regional councils is how much we spend on education, and that's something we've gone back to the state with, you know, through other research and other areas that are actually achieving some success in this space. Is there a minimum spend per property per year that you need to enable to achieve the outcomes you need to achieve? So that's a piece of that, and I think we will need to look at our budget when we have those figures and we can see where we're sitting at against the other 6 large regional councils. I'm really pleased that through Evan and the comms team, I've now got Sky committed to us for a significant amount of her her time. And Sky's joining me in those conversations with the state, because I'm not a comms person, you know, it's just all just fluffy stuff to me. I don't really understand it. And they ask me, Michael, what do you think? And I say, Sky, what do I think? And we go from there. So yeah, look, we've got good support in-house. I would expect we'll be starting to roll some comms out by around second quarter of next year, based on the outcome of the survey and the focus groups and stuff that are happening now at the state level. The plastics, going back to the plastics, so I'm hoping to release the tender finally for our MRF in about 2 to 3 weeks' time. That's been a long road as well. And we've got some provision in that tender package that's going out for tenderers to actually tell us. So the option one is the business as usual in terms of the composition of what's acceptable in the bin. But if we reduce the plastics down to just the PPE, the PP and the HDPE, the three main plastics that actually have value, would that change the design of your MRF, and would that change the quantum of the gate fee? Our surrounding councils are not prepared to make that change in that without seeing what the markets, what market benefit we might get from that.
No, very good, Michael. And just finally, Madam Chair, you mentioned there too, as part of the design of the EBC, that you're going to look at the very important question of why are people contaminating, and that will inform them what the messaging is going out. It might just be that they weren't aware, or as you said, it's too complex a thing, a great big long list of what you can and can't. So the result of that question will certainly make a better
certainly
campaign
help
at the end of it.
Yeah. And the other big thing, and Councillor Rutherford's raised this in the past, is where through all of this work we're trying to get harmonisation on the lid colours. Yeah. So all of the old green lids, as in the future we'll be looking to swap those over to be red. Because if we're going out with a message and we're talking about lid colours, then we can't have confusion around lid colours.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Manager.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Wickerson. And I suppose during the education process, Michael, we'll be letting people know, like, if they put the wrong thing in the recycling, as we've seen, not only could cause a fire in a truck, it cause a fire on the MRF or wherever it's stored, and that's really, really serious. The one thing that wasn't mentioned in your, I know you only gave an example of what you can't put in there, is aerosol cans. And that's always the one people think, oh, should I put that in there or should I put it in my red bin? And I've been to people's places and they've had various stuff and they say, oh, is that recyclable or not? They really don't really know. And I know this is why we're doing this education. But I think Councillor Wickerson might have touched on stickers. Like at the present time, what you're planning, they only get a sticker if they're naughty. To me, if you're coming to a bin and it's got a sticker on it that says, gives a tick to what should go in it and a real red line to what shouldn't go in it. I come from the fuel industry, and our yellow bins on the driveway for actual fires or spills, you throw this stuff on it. And it had a big thing on the top, no waste, because people thought that's a recycle bin and they're putting all their recycling in there. We had to clean it out every day. And I think a big sticker on the lid goes a long way, because a lot of people care, but there is people, that just don't care, people that, don't stay here long and they really not worried about our landfill or whatever,
Next time I come in, I might bring a lid. For the last probably 2 years, we've been embossing the top of the lids, because that will last. So it's an imprint that's stamped into the lid during the manufacturing process. And we've found that the embossing lasts a lot longer than a sticker. The sticker will get half torn off, or it'll fade, or you've got to replace it, whereas the embossing lasts. And the embossing, we include all of that key messaging as well. So I might bring a lid next time in.
So it's the same colour though?
It's the same colour, but where it's embossed, it will be white. So it'll be a white print on a red lid, or a white print on a yellow lid.
I don't see that because I don't live in town.
Yeah.
I don't have a recycle bin.
So if anyone's who's received a new bin or a new lid in around the last two years, possibly 3 years, you would have that on your lid. Anything older than that, you wouldn't.
Yeah. And the other thing is getting people to read it. But anyway. Councillor Rutherford.
I think Michael almost answered my question there. My yellow bin lid has, I don't know, a print on it, but not a white, it's just the same colour. But I notice with them is once the lid gets dirty, you know, if you store them under trees or whatever, it doesn't take long for them to get some mildew and a cover on them, and it's very hard to see.
Yeah.
But maybe this new white, I take your point that a sticker will fade over time, but if you were to open that door just behind you, you'll see that the bins there have nice big stickers on, so you can't miss which one. Every time you look at it, which one you should be dropping in. And I probably shouldn't admit this, but every time I walk out to my bins, I have to check which one I'm supposed to throw what in. You would think there's only two colours. You would think that it would stick which one is recycled and which one is waste, but I have to check it every time. And I don't think I'm alone there. No. So I think it's about doing something that lets people know very quickly, very clearly which bin is for which thing. And you would think by having different coloured lids that would do that, but I'm not sure it's still quite clear enough. Yeah.
Thanks, Councillor Rutherford. So no more questions. Councillor Latcham, would you like to move that recommendation? That Council note the process for the management and reduction of household contamination in the yellow lid recycle bin used for storage and collection of household recyclable waste. Seconded, Councillor Kirkland. All those in favour? Thank you. That was carried unanimously. Councillor Latcham, Councillor Kirkland. Thank you for that, Michael. Very good. So the next one, we have a Gazelle, is it?
Giselle.
Sorry? Giselle, sorry. No. So in the background working. Okay. Very good. I envy your job because you can go to the shop all the time. I haven't been to the shop for ages. Reading this report's reminded me I need to go and see what they've got for sale.
Well,
Thank you.
It opens on the Friday, Saturday and Sunday, and we all work on the Friday, so even we don't get the first pick. Good morning, Madam Chair and councillors. So a bit of context with this report today. As Michael mentioned earlier, we have a waste strategy that takes us through to the year 2030. That strategy outlines how we will meet the objectives and waste diversion targets of Queensland's waste management and resource recovery strategy. So a large part of our waste diversion comes from our resource recovery areas within Lakes Creek Road landfill. So resource recovery areas are where our customers bring in their items and we will either sort it, process it, sell it, send it off for recycling or reuse it in some way. So for the purposes of this report, the resource recovery areas we'll be talking about is the reuse shop, the community recycling centre and the waste transfer station. So in March 2021, Council made a resolution to award the contract for the operation of these areas to Community Resources Limited. So they actually operate under Resource Recovery Australia, RRA. The resolution did include operational budgetary increases to both revenue to council and contract expenses. And that contract was awarded in May 2021. So RRA themselves, they are a not-for-profit organisation and a social enterprise, and they currently operate tip shops, waste transfer stations, landfills, drop-off areas through Queensland, New South Wales and ACT. So the contract itself that was awarded to RRA is somewhat different to the previous contract in that the previous contract included the removal and sale of scrap metal from site. So that has now been separated into a panel agreement in which 100% of that revenue is now retained by council. So under the current contract, that includes the supervision services of the waste transfer station, so our big building, and the community recycling centre. So those supervision services include providing our customers with good customer service, providing advice regarding recycling and recovery, giving directions around the site, supervising disposals and physically assisting with customers dropping off their items, maintaining these areas in clean, tidy and safe conditions, removing contaminants from our recycling and waste streams, and obviously scavenging for items of value that can then be sold within the reuse shop. So the reuse shop itself, that is operated under a profit share agreement in which anything over $300,000 in revenue from the sale of items from the tip shop, anything above that is under a profit share with council. So anything up to $300,000 is kept by RRA. Between $300,000 and $400,000, for that $100,000 there, we get 80%. Between 4 and 5, we get 70%, and anything above $500,000, council gets 60%. As for financial circumstances for what we had anticipated compared to our first year, in scrap metal, because we weren't getting that revenue at all before, well, we got a very small percentage. We had anticipated to get around $250,000, so we actually came in at $535,000, so more than double than what we had expected. And tip shop sales for the profit share agreement, we had expected the shop to make $400,000, and we came in at $367,000. So overall, we are still better off just over $250,000, better than anticipated. So in addition to the financial benefits, we've also seen vast improvements across the board for the entire operation of those areas. So the community recycling centre, it's actually now well maintained. You'd see the big signage. You can see it from Mount Archer if you've ever driven past. It's well maintained. The customer service there is now excellent. Every customer is attended to and helped with disposing of their items. The reuse shop, which is now called the Reviver Ibis, it has excellent customers that come in there. It's no longer a dingy old dump shop. People actually come there and line up at 8 a.m. on Friday mornings and Saturdays, looking for good quality merchandise, so they actually have good quality items in there and not just three-legged tables. RRA, being a social enterprise, they genuinely support our community, so they provide jobs and training to staff that are experiencing barriers to employment, and they have formed some really good working relationships with other organisations within the area. So Multicultural Australia, which operate out of the Upcycle Village, which is within that compound. So they provide them with resources and materials so that their students have resources to work with. So they provide, they make tables and chairs and that kind of thing that then are donated to homes of domestic violence. So they had their big launch about a month or so ago, which a few of you were at. They are also in partnership with Central Queensland Multicultural Association. They provide work experience to their members, so they have a better chance of finding employment in the future. And they'll also be participating again in National Recycling Week coming up in November. That includes hosting our second annual recycling fair and a few other activities throughout that week. So overall, since the commencement of RRA under the contract of the Waste Transfer Station, the Community Recycling Centre and the reuse shop, we've seen vast improvements across the board. The awarded contract and associated scrap metal panel agreement has proved financially viable and of benefit to the wider Rockhampton region. And it's through these contracts we've got confidence that we'll continue to see an increase in waste diversion, community engagement and revenue over the next 3 years of their contract, all in which aid to allow us to deliver the objectives under that waste strategy. Thank you, Madam Chair. Any?
Okay, thank you for that. And I just want to make a comment. I'm very impressed with the amount of mattresses that were processed. That's incredible, absolutely incredible. Finally, they've got, you know, you can get the steel out of them, or the metal, which is really great. I'm not sure who had the light on first. Councillor Kirkland is first.
Oh, thanks, Madam Chair. This was a great report to read, and I thanks Gazelle for putting it together. It was a breath of fresh air. It's nice to see that all those objectives that were set out right from the very get-go have been coming to fruition. The couple of things that stood out to me, certainly all of the training opportunities, and you could see the workers that are there that have now got certificates in multiple areas. It was a really good thing to read, and I loved reading a little bit about who those workers are behind the scenes, and their dreams. I noted one of them said that his dream was always to work at a dump, and he's doing that now. It's not all that's unusual dream, but he's happy, I'm happy, everyone's happy. The other thing is the connection through to organisations like Multicultural Australia and CQMA as well, just to help with their traineeships and integrating those people who are having challenges finding work, and the donations going back to the communities for those welfare type of needs was also great to read. So congratulations to you and to the team, and let's hope that that just continues to be built on. And you're right, a much nicer space for everybody to see. It's not like a Steptoe and Sons anymore. It's a far removed from that. So well done.
Thanks, Councillor Kirkland. Councillor Wickerson.
Thanks, Madam Chair, through you to Giselle as well. Yeah, a great report, very comprehensive in the detail in there, and also reading through those personal stories was brilliant. One little quick question then, a comment. I didn't quite understand the table on table 1 on page 33. And I'm not sure if I'm reading it the right way. Just the maths on it, I couldn't get my head around. Is that correct? Like, so just take that first band, $300,000 to $400,000 revenue in the shop, but the share to council is 80%. Isn't it the reciprocal of that? I didn't understand the. I understand that it's an increasing scale as their profits go up, but I didn't understand that share to council percentage column.
Okay, yeah, so percentage-wise, so yeah, anything up to $300,000, that's all kept by them. Then between $300,000 and $400,000 for that $100,000 slot, we retain 80%. And then for the next $100,000 slot, we would retain 70%.
But 80% of even 300,000 isn't 80,000.
No, so it's 80% of that 100,000. So the 100,000, that lies between 300 and 400,000.
So you get the first 300.
Oh, okay, it doesn't get back to the first, just the
No, so anything,
okay.
that first 300,000 we have no entitlement to.
Yeah, understood.
It's only from
so
the
that's,
3 to 4.
that's kept.
Yeah.
Okay, no, understood. I thought it just, like a water race, just triggered into the next layer. So no, thank you.
Our accountants have fun with it.
At the opening of the Upcycling Village, and I think Councillor Latchip and I were there, and others, I'm sure, brilliant program, but the whole place is such a vast improvement over what was there before. But that particular program was just awesome to see these younger people. And I know they're a bit disadvantaged, some of the trainees that are on that, but they get carpentry skills, and just to be able to be creative and making furniture out of three-legged tables, fixing those up, or making incredible things out of pallets even. It's just setting the example for the rest of us, so that you don't necessarily have to throw this stuff away. You can make other things out of it. So, and I think that was, from the attendees there at least, it was a jointly funded program. I think the state must pitch in some money for it too, I think, along the way. And,
correct.
And I guess council does too, by either in kind or actual. So just the training that those people get, and then hopefully add to inspiration for the rest of us too, is invaluable. So I must admit, I hope this isn't a conflict, but on that same day, going back through the main recycling, repurposing facility, bought a very brilliant purple violin for about $20. So it's in the process of being upcycled. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but anyway, I couldn't leave it there.
Yeah.
Thanks, Madam Chair.
Well, thanks, Councillor Wickerson. No more, Councillor Latcham.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Just like to finally say thank you, Giselle and the team. It's been a very good decision to this. Revive Ibis is a very professional outfit, as you can see through the report. They know what they've done. They've planned it. They're even investing in new equipment and stuff, investing in their staff, training them. So I know every time I've been down there, it's been a very positive experience. The staff are always helpful and very cheerful. So it's changed the perception of the whole resource recovery area, and it's working very well. So it's great to see this come through. It's great to see it's only had one incident from what I could read but look at the positives. 99% of the reports have been very positive, so that's very good. So yeah, I'd like to move the report.
Yeah, absolutely, Councillor Latcham. Would someone like to second that? Councillor Wickerson? That the Community Recycling Centre and Reuse Shop update report be received. Thank you very much, Giselle. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. On to 10.4, Quay Street traffic configuration. Who's doing that one? Stuart. You drew the short straw? Yes, Councillor Rutherford.
Madam Chair, Stuart, don't shoot me daggers. I'm just wondering, this one's been a fair while in coming, and I do note that there's 3 of us missing.
Yes, I was going to.
And I just think that this is a fairly important.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of community input into this one, and I just think there should be a full table.
Yeah, absolutely. I had the same thoughts, Councillor Rutherford. Other councillors have asked if they can just get some information, and maybe we can suspend standing orders just to get some, because it is a huge thing to consider, and it will maybe change the face of our city in years to come, and it's a very, really important decision. As you say, it's been a long time coming, and there is a lot of for and against with the whole thing.
Yeah, I just wonder if we're laying the matter on the table. I'm not sure we can deal with it.
We can discuss it and then lay it.
Yeah, but are we, sorry, if I could through the chair, you're going to go over it twice. So is it better off just to lay the matter on the table and move on to the next item, and then at the next meeting, Stuart does a presentation to those councillors at that meeting then, so we're not going over it twice.
Yeah. Okay, so next Tuesday is the council meeting. Should we...
We can refer it to the next committee meeing.
Refer it to the next...
Yeah, it's been one way for a few years now. Another month isn't going to hurt.
So you're saying to the next committee meeting?
Next committee.
Next
committee meeting.
Next committee meeting.
Yep.
Okay. So Councillor Rutherford, would you like to move that? And seconded Councillor Wickerson. So do we need to put a date? We don't need to put a date on there. Evan, we need to put a date on there? Just the next infrastructure committee meeting. Just take the on off the end. We're not going to put a date on it, Karen. So that's Councillor Rutherford, Councillor Wickerson. Okay, all those in favour? And that's... You're against, Councillor Kirkland? And recorded Councillor Kirkland is against that recommendation. Thank you. Okay, so on to 10.5, and Peter just has some information about your conflict of interest, Councillor Latcham.
Yeah, through the chair, just checking the actual act and what is declarable conflicts, it actually confirms that a councillor or a related party of councillor has an interest in an educational facility, which is what this is not a declarable conflict. Okay. So it can be childcare, student, former student, parent, grandparent of student, and there is no conflict.
So do we need to put that in somewhere in information in the minutes? Evan?
We'll just put a note.
Put a note to say that confirm that Councillor Latcham does not have a conflict of interest due to information regarding councillor's conflict of interest. Yeah, with the infant educational facility. Councillor Wickerson.
And Madam Chair, if it's not already picked up, the previous declaration be taken out too, is that right?
Yes.
At the beginning, yeah.
Yeah, we'll correct that.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, so Stuart, you're in the box yet again.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Morning, councillors. So the Department of Transport and Main Roads has released round one of the School Transport Infrastructure Program, or STIP program, for the period of 2022 to 26. It's a little bit deceptive because you may recall there was previously a STIP funding as well in the years 1920 and 2021, but it had been discontinued in the last financial year and then reborn, and the round one is representing, I suppose, the 2022 to 26 period. So it has been a program that's been around previously. Essentially, STIP aims to provide funding for improving safety and operation of schools through new and improved infrastructure to the school or the surrounding road network. There's a range of projects that are listed in that report, not exhaustive, but provide, I suppose, some guidance as to the types of projects that can be submitted. The maximum amount of funding available from the state's around that $500,000, except in some exceptional circumstances they may sort of take contributions greater than that. And it's anticipated that local government in some form will have a contribution to these projects. Whilst it isn't strictly required, it's favoured in that process. And 100% approval of projects is allowed, but it's at the discretion of the approver, which would be TMR. So the funding process has several steps. There's a flow chart included in that report that sort of highlights how it steps through. But initially a STIP ideas form is put forward, and that can be raised by anyone, the school, members of the community, Member of Parliament, through council themselves or through TMR. So a range of people can submit an idea. TMR, the road safety manager, then does a safe investigation into that particular idea that's been raised or the issues that are raised there. That's generally done in conjunction with the road authority, so with ourselves, and then recommends whether the STIP nomination should proceed and what that form should look in, and then council and TMR work together as to what the infrastructure is that sort of services that issue or services that need at the particular school. This round there's a range of projects, and I'll go through those. I'll just note that a lot of the projects that are mentioned here are ones that were in line to be put forward for the round of STIP before it was discontinued. So a lot of the projects here were ones that schools had already approached council about issues, and we'd sort of gone through that process and had it ready for that round of STIP before it was cancelled. So that they've sort of formed a lot of the projects that we see here today. And they're ones where the school, predominantly, they're ones where the school or the school community have come to council and raised these issues. So that's where these projects have arrived from. So the first of those is Frenchville State School. It's one that seems to be continually on the list, but some proposals have been put to council through the PNC and through members of the school community on how to make some amendments to the school stop, drop and go zone in order to reduce some of the queuing distance that happens out onto Frenchville Road there. So with some arrangements that you'll see in that attachment, by changing some of the configuration there, we're actually able to get some more queue space and storage space within the facility and have sort of two stop, drop and go zones running together. To sort of increase the amount of kids that we can get in and out of there in that school peak period. The cost of the works is estimated around that $175,000, and council are proposing to provide no contribution to this particular project, partly because there's been an ongoing, I suppose, commitment from council over the years to infrastructure in this area, and so that project is being put forward for 100% funding from STIP. The next project is Mount Archer School around Wiltshire Street, at the back of the school there, through previous works that council had done.
Sorry, Stuart, Councillor Latchin.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Madam Chair. Sorry, Stuart. Just back onto Frenchville now that I can speak about it. It's just in a general sense, not even specifically the school. I just noticed your signage there has got 2 minutes for the parking for areas, and the other one's got a quarter. Just a suggestion, is it better to put 15 minutes? Because a quarter is just a bit, I just find that difficult. Whereas 15 minutes would be a lot clearer to people as to how long that time is.
Yep, so through the chair, yeah, I mean, the signing can be changed. The quarter P is just consistent with what the Australian standard is, but it can be changed to be more prescriptive to the 15 minutes. But generally, we prefer to use quarter P to represent that 15-minute period.
Just that they're used to they're used to the 2 minutes.
Yeah.
It's probably consistent to have the 15 minutes, but it's just a suggestion anyway.
Yep. Happy to take that on board.
Yeah, Stuart, if you don't mind, we can discuss each school as we go along.
Yep.
With the Frenchville one, I still remember back when I started here in 2012, Councillor Fisher went through a lot of pain to get things organised there. It was just complete chaos. I remember going there with him one day and we had a community catch-up meeting where they chewed us all up and spat us out again. Very, very hostile parents, because it was just so dangerous. And I'm surprised that they've still got problems, and they're our biggest school at 1,055 children, 840. Well, it used to be, it was 1,000 in those days. And I sort of was surprised that there's still problems there, obviously. Yeah, the traffic in that area is just horrendous.
Yeah, through the chair, it's predominantly sort of a 15-minute period and a result of a change, I suppose, in behaviour as to how people pick their kids up and how people go to and from school. And we have seen that problem on Frenchville Road still persisting. During COVID, it was a bit of a change that the school had pushed some to Geordie Street and some to Frenchville Road, and it sort of was a bit of reprieve through that period. But it's gone back to having that queue on Frenchville Road, and that probably will. This project will help reduce that. That queue will probably still be there, but it's, I suppose, reducing the amount of time that queue hangs out onto Frenchville Road. Yeah.
So, Stuart, you were saying that most of these, except White Street's been on the program for quite a few years, and it surprises me that they don't get priority. Like we can't prioritise them. So obviously, TMR would see that they've been on the project for years. And I think if you read through the whole commentary, it says that it's up to them which ones that they fund, that we don't prioritise. Is that right?
Yeah, so through the chair, we just propose, I suppose, the projects that have been raised to us, I suppose, and we put them all up. And then there is a TMR technical committee that assess, I suppose, those against other projects within the state, and then determine which ones they will and won't fund. But we're not necessarily prioritising internally, we're just proposing all the projects and I suppose trying to seek funding for as many of them as we can. But they will acknowledge, I suppose, in some instances, around Frenchville and some of the other schools, there may have been ministerials from, members of parliament and that may have submitted things, and that may have a bearing on some of those projects over others. But we're not providing a priority. We're just submitting them all and hoping we can get all of them, I suppose.
Yeah. Councillor Rutherford.
Councillor Smith, I'm sorry for the late notice. I was just looking through the schools. I didn't realise White Street, I have a conflict of interest there because of the Knight Street.
Yeah, sure.
My sister and brother-in-law's business is on
You're right with
Knight
that one,
Street.
Karen. Councillor Rutherford has a conflict. We'll come to that one. We'll discuss each one separately. Yes. Councillor Rutherford had a conflict at the last, was it the last council meeting?
I think so, yes.
Yeah, the last council meeting.
Yeah.
No, I think it was a council meeting. Oh, okay.
So, Karen, my brother-in-law and sister own Sargent Signs on Knight Street. Sorry, I need to give you their names, don't they? Shane and Marie Sargent. Yep.
Got it from the last.
Yeah, we can just copy and paste that one. Yeah, thanks, Councillor Rutherford. No more discussion about Frenchville. Okay, on to Mount Archer. Thanks, Stuart.
Mount Archer, Wheelchair Street footpath project. Part of when we were doing a recent bus stop upgrade on Wheelchair Street, it became apparent that there were some issues there with curb ramps and discontinuous footpaths. So the project that's proposed is upgrading that school children's crossing and some upgraded bus stop and hard stand and providing a 1.8 metre consistent footpath between those and some works to existing curb ramp facilities there. So it's not a significant amount, it's only $59,000 worth of works and council are proposing no council contribution for this particular one. There was some money that council had spent recently in that area around upgrading bus infrastructure. So happy to take any questions on that one. Attachment 3 shows a bit of proposed concept design there for the works.
Yeah, thanks, Stuart. Yeah, again, another very, very busy area, and I think that's our second largest school. So 59,000, that'd be good to get that little project over and done with.
Yep.
And Mount Morgan Central State School.
Yep, so through the chair, I'll talk to the two Mount Morgan projects together, but essentially at Mount Morgan Central State School on Gordon Street there, council have actually undertaken a fair bit of work there recently to make some improvements to that set down exit and egress point there at the school. So council previously constructed a 2 metre wide footpath and pedestrian fence, at the school bus stop and had constructed some curb works there, some curb crossover points separating from that and removing a crossing point that was sort of further up Gordon Street that wasn't particularly being used. So that works was completed and that council's contribution to that was $118,000. As part of that works, there was some curb work around the corner from Central Street into Gordon Street, and council poured the curb but didn't do any median infill behind it due to budgetary constraints. So the amount that we're seeking for this from that STIP funding is only $22,000 to do some curb median infill behind that, and it's really to make that curb stronger in the event that someone hits it, it doesn't break out, and just provide a bit more strength and a bit more hard stand area, I suppose, at that particular location. So that works was proposed as part of that. And then the second part was at the high school in D Street. There's a bit of the footpath there, sort of got several trip hazards with the existing surface sort of breaking out with tree roots and whatnot there. And there's also a fairly big step down from where the curb is down onto the existing pavement surface. And so there's a bit of a set down, I think, in a bus stop facility that happens there. So we were proposing to tidy some of that up with fixing the footpath and doing some works to the curb and channel drainage there. So the cost with that works, I believe, is $49,000 and council was contributing $13,000. So the reason I talk to those two together is that those projects are sort of being, our contribution from Mount Morgan Central State School is fairly significant, and so that's why the contribution from the high school was lesser for that particular one. So proposing to do both of those projects up there in Mount Morgan. And seeking 22 for D Street, for Central Gordon Street, sorry, and 49,000 for the D Street works. So happy to take any questions on those particular ones.
Just a comment, yeah, two good projects, and Mount Morgan doesn't have a lot of footpaths, being one of the smaller towns, and I've seen the footpaths around the high school, and I've got to watch where I'm walking when we go there. Occasionally, so it'd be good to get those two, and not a lot of, we're not asking for a lot with the 22 and the 49, so it'd be good to get those two as well. So no, Councillor Kirkland.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Is it possible or common practice to put in seating for parents waiting for children off those footpaths? I know that this is more about footpaths and road infrastructure, but it's also related to safety, I suppose, in essence. I've had a number of parents contact me about seating arrangements, particularly at Mount Morgan School out there. Is that something that can be built into this or not? Is that something that we need to look at doing separately?
Potentially, it could. I suppose it depends on the size of the contribution there, but it's probably how does it meet the safety objectives, I suppose, associated with the proposed works. If it's somewhere, if it's road furniture there to support, I suppose, comfort and amenity, it probably doesn't necessarily fit the bill for road safety and improvements to that as associated with school infrastructure. So it may be a little bit of a longer bow to draw. Yeah.
I just thought I'd ask. Thank you.
Okay, no more comments or questions on the Mount Morgan projects. So North Rocky High School, another good project.
Yep. So through the chair, this project's proposed to essentially extend and construct footpath along Robinson Street, so along the school frontage there. I will make an amendment to the report here. The figure we had proposed as council's contribution, which previously was 128,000. Council's contribution actually was 273,000, so significantly more there. Council had done some pavement and curb work along that school frontage side of Robinson Street. There's a lot of sort of unsealed and no curb and channel there, so Council had proposed and is currently constructed, I believe, that works already, so curb work and extending the pavement out in that particular area. And this project is essentially to provide a delineated footpath on the verge there behind the back of curb along the school frontage all the way up from where it currently ends at Robinson Street all the way up to Dean Street there. So we're seeking $162,000 worth of works to extend that footpath up there. So that work provides, I suppose, benefit to the North Rocky school community, but also it's more widely used by the community for the likes of Little Athletics and sporting uses and that on that particular fields at the back of North Rocky High there as well.
Yeah, thanks, Stuart. Yeah, another large school. I think their population there, 1,040, I think, is their maximum. So another large school, and it'd be good to get that project too. They're all really good projects. Councillor Latcham.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Through to Stuart. So I was a little bit surprised by this one, given that there's a footpath on the other side of Robinson Street, the whole length, right through to the police station. So I was surprised that they're doing both sides when that's not normally the standard for the region yet. They normally say as long as it's on one side, that's sufficient. So with that in mind, and it's great to see that there's curb and channeling going on the school side of Robinson Street. A couple of questions I had in there. Was it considered for safety more than anything, the access to get across the road to the footpath near the Northside Pool access road where that little heated pool is? Would that have been a better suggestion to have a crossing there away from the traffic so people can get to the pool without having to race across the road? At least it'd be a designated area that they could cross the road safely, which would link up to that whole length of footpath, therefore negating the need to have a duplication of footpaths. Was probably my first question. I've got one after that, if I may.
Yes.
Yep. So through the chair, as part of a previous round of STIP funding, council actually has built a crossing at that location out the front of Robinson Street, where there's a gate there that comes out of North Rocky High, and we did some curb extensions there so that children could, or students could cross over to that other side of the pool area, because they sort of go off in different directions. So some head off up Ursika Street up that way, some head up Robinson Street, but there's also still a demand of vehicles that are parking on the school side all the way up the extents of North Rocky High. So we're providing that footpath there, and if you go and have a look on the aerials, there's actually a fairly warm path up there as well. So we're trying to, I suppose, provide that infrastructure to service that existing need that's up in that particular area. Noting that, at the moment, or previously, we've built footpath on one side of the road, but in council's newly adopted, I suppose, walking cycling strategy, there's a focus to provide increased infrastructure around schools. So we're trying to prioritise some of those areas where the demand is there, and I suppose as part of this works, it had been identified that was a need, I suppose.
Okay, thank you. And if I may,
Yeah, thanks.
So I know it's only paint, but should there have been a pedestrian, an actual marked across to get across to the north side pool? Would that help identify an area where kids should be crossing? That's obviously a little bit of paint. Obviously, it doesn't stop accident and stuff, but have a defined area would probably make it easier for the children to know, or the students to know where to cross over safely, and obviously identify for the cars to know where to slow down.
So through the chair, the marking of zebra crossings, obviously then it's a contentious one in the region, but the marking of zebra crossings then brings on a need to light it, and also they're generally needed to have consistent pedestrian movements there all the time. Where there isn't that consistent movement, the avenue to provide a children's crossing, but because it's a high school, it doesn't meet the warrants for a children's crossing either. So the zebra crossing, the issue with having it marked as a zebra crossing is that outside of school hours, there's an expectation that, or there's generally a low pedestrian demand, so vehicles tend to not give way in those types of periods, and then that becomes and raises more issues for those pedestrians that are crossing outside of peak periods. So whereas the curb build-outs is really just reducing the crossing distance for students, during school hours it's 40k, so it's a low-speed environment, and given that it's got the access to the pool there, that pool access road, and Berserker Street, traffic's sort of fairly slow moving through there, so pedestrians can pick the gap and sort of appropriately cross. So it was looked at as part of that previous submission, but it was preferred to keep it as just curb build-outs with no zebra crossing mark there.
Okay, Madam Chair, thank you.
Yes.
Another question. Just following up on that one, I'm just surprised. Most schools have got pedestrian crossings, and I don't know whether it just doesn't apply to high schools or not. Because I would have thought Berserker Street probably should have had one very busy street. But just a comment on that one. My next question, if I may, is regarding the actual footpath. When we talk about I mentioned the duplication, and you've rightly said new policy and stuff, to get maximum value out of an area. Had you considered Dean Street, instead of using that up Robinson Street, the amount of footpath across Dean Street would have given more, because there's nothing at Dean Street, and there's no footpath along Dean Street at all, being a busy road. It would have probably been, if it linked up to that, would have probably got a bit more mileage out of your footpath.
So through the chair, yeah, ideally we, I suppose, would like to continue down Dean Street along that frontage as well. I suppose the focus has been on Robinson Street because of that demand that currently exists there. The sort of school demand doesn't necessarily push its way out to Dean Street as of yet, but there is intent, I suppose, in the longer term to provide some sort of footpath connection along that section as well. So yeah, it is on our, I suppose we are aware of it and like to build it in, but we're sort of tackling this frontage first where there's a fair bit of school activity at this stage.
Sorry, Madam Chair, I've got a couple more questions, just two more it should be. Firstly, Stuart, the usage of that area, has anyone seen if that's a busy side of the street that kids are using, or just, is there any research?
Robinson Street?
Total data on using on the school side of Robinson Street, whether the kids use it or do they actually use the footpath on the other side?
Yeah, so through the chair, there's a fair bit of usage, I think, along that section for the school, and as I said, also through that sort of extracurricular school activities that are there, so little athletics, and I think some of the sporting clubs, they train there and do after-school sport there. And I believe Councillor Fisher has raised it before as an issue for to have pedestrian connectivity through there, and that interaction between vehicles parking on the verge and pedestrians trying to get through. So that's sort of where that had come from. But yes, in the school period, I suppose when the people are parking, students are unlikely to walk up one side of the road and then cross back over to the school frontage. They're more likely to stay along that school frontage to go to vehicles that are picking them up or whatnot. So that's sort of the intent behind that, and some of the site investigations, I suppose, had supported that.
Okay. And final question,
Yes.
Madam Chair. It's probably loaded into two, sorry. Where the existing on the school side of Robinson Street is, where the concrete footpath currently finishes, and you're proposing to go right to the end to Dean Street, I noticed that it's up against the fence itself, and it's about 2.2 metres wide. Was there any consideration to keep that consistency and run it all the way along the fence line, so there's less maintenance on that side, and you could have probably had a wider 2.2 metre wide footpath the whole way through? And the second part of the question is, with the removal of the trees, I mean, they're 2.4 away from the fence, at least. So I was surprised that the trees were going when we need as many trees as we can along footpaths. Even if it is only the 1.8 and it was closest to the fence, it even allows even more space between the trees and the fence where the footpath runs, if it was a straight line. And and the third component of it is, you do a bit of a dog leg to go over infrastructure. I was surprised because the precedent around town is that you just go straight over infrastructure. I think it's a Telstra box or something or other, Telstra pit. I would have thought that was easy and made it easy if it was flat level with the concrete footpath where it's identified, and it's kind of captured there. So instead of having to do a bit of a dog leg, you just do one big straight line. Sorry, there's three parts to it.
That's right. Through the chair, I suppose at this stage these designs are fairly conceptual in nature, and so we're trying to cover off on areas where we may have issues. So, the likes of the Telstra pit, if it's sitting too low and we've got to pull it up, there's a fairly substantial cost that might be associated with that. So I think conceptually we've just tried to avoid those bits and pieces. Take the point that, we could try and butt it up against back of curb or up against the fence line to avoid some of that tree removal. And I suppose when we get to that detailed design stage, if it's successful, then that would be some of the aims that we'd be trying to achieve through there, is to try and minimise losses to trees and try and do that. I think in the conceptual design, it's just been sort of centred within the verge there. So there is avenue to try and avoid that and try and keep it again in one particular location to avoid sort of moving it around and avoid any of those obstacles. So we'll take that on board, Councillor, and if we're successful as part of the design, that'll be something that's considered as part of that.
Thank you. Sorry, Madam Chair.
Yeah, I will just make one quick comment. Those plans that you're looking at are just concept plans, so they will change naturally to be the most efficient in terms of construction. It's just for the bid, that's what we draw up to make it look neat and tidy as a concept.
Okay. And Madam Chair, sorry, there is one slide. E-scooters. Is there a minimum width for e-scooters? Especially the kids will be, probably, I'd imagine a lot of the kids will be using e-scooters to get to school or around to be dropped off or whatever. So is there a minimum width for e-scooters or not?
Through the chair, I think they can go on any footpath. It depends. There's a requirement for the speed environment and whether there's bike lanes or whatnot, but I don't believe there's a minimum footpath width that they should be on. Desirably, it'd be nice to have them on 1.5 and greater, and I suppose that's why we propose that wider width. But yeah, there's no minimum particularly for them at this stage.
So we're all finished with North Rocky. So another, I've been in Quarry Street when the grammar schools come out, and this is a real safety issue. Thanks, Stuart.
So through the chair, Rocky Grammar School out on Quarry Street there, it's probably their primary school frontage there. They've got a set of steps that comes down from their set down zone and then comes out, and there's a fair crossing volume that cross over Quarry Street to either go down Wheatcroft or some of the other adjacent streets and in that particular area. So we've been approached by the school and schools P&C around a supervised crossing point at that location, and due to the crest in the road, it is a little bit problematic for pedestrians as they try to navigate that gap across Quarry Street. So proposed here to put in a supervised crossing, and because it's a primary school, it meets the warrants for that, and that assessment has been done. And then some connecting footpath network, I suppose, to connect into the works that Council had done on Archer Street a year or two ago, I believe. And then also some additional works up the top of the hill at Archer Street there to connect into an existing crossing point that's been constructed there as well. So the amount of works there is seeking 104,000, and Council's contribution that was built through some of that footpath works previously is around that 143,000. So I'm happy to take any questions on that particular one.
Okay, no questions? Oh, Councillor Latcham. Grammar?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Just a couple of questions, if I may. Great to see that this will be addressed. It was the suggestion that could they have linked it on the school side, a footpath that went through and joined up to the one on Archer Street footpath? Was that a consideration to keep them away from that going on the other side of the street of Quarry Street? But they could have kept them on the school side and went and put in a footpath along there. Would have been, I would have thought, safer.
Yeah, so through the chair, there is a fair demand that goes down Wheatcroft Street, and then some also go to Quarry Street and then back towards Cambridge. So they sort of split in all directions, because as part of the assessment we also looked at, can we try and send them down towards on that side of the road down. But there's a fair amount of on-street parking either side of Quarry Street and a fair demand down Wheatcroft Street. But it's also not particularly apparent in that drawing, but on those aerials there's actually like some indented bays that are on that section of Quarry Street as well, and so it was difficult with grades and that to try and get a footpath through there. So we're just going from that where the stairs come down at that set down zone, getting them across the road and then connecting into the wider network. So it was something that was looked at, but that was the demand for crossing at that particular location was fairly significant, so that's why it supported the crossing at that location.
Yeah, I accept that. Thanks, Madam Chair. It's really Stuart. Except that, it's obviously a very busy area. A lot of traffic there. around drop-up and pick-up time. My last question is the footpath. It looks like a footpath to go up on Archer Street on the other side of the road.
Yep.
I don't understand that. Is the purpose of it? It doesn't link up to anything, and it just sits up on a hill.
Yep, so through the chair, there's an existing crossing point at the top of the hill there where students cross, and then they sort of spread to either go up that Smith Street or down to Reservoir Street. So they sort of spread out there, and some head that way to go to, there's a childcare facility there, and there's also through to the girls' grammar, there's a bit of a connection through that place as well. So we're just, I suppose, trying to provide another link of footpath network to connect to that crossing point that's fairly heavily used. The intent, it would be nice to try and provide it all the way down to Quarry Street, because there's another crossing point just south of Reservoir Street. Be nice to try and provide it through there, but we're providing, I suppose, where the highest demand is at this stage. So officers went out and did a site inspection, and the demand was higher at the top of the hill rather than down closer towards where Quarry Street was. So that's sort of driven where the extents of it have gone. And I suppose we're trying not to giving council's contribution, we're trying not to, I suppose, do significant amounts beyond that. So we're just trying to provide where the usage is at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
No worries. And I think it's the last one. Oh, sorry, Councillor Wickerson.
Thanks, Madam Chair, through you. Very pleased to see this come. I think you and I have had numerous meetings on site with the P&C boards and also the TMR reps. So this isn't the only work that's been done. There's been lots of work done prior to that too. And I just wanted to bring councillors' attention to in Quarry Street, because there's a drop-off lane up actually inside the school, which the school has spent plenty of money on. But there was always a bit of a bottleneck where people would come south on Quarry Street and want to turn into that ramp up. Meanwhile, there's parents coming from the other way, coming up, and there was often virtually fist fights there because people would cut the queue and whatever. So we stopped that right turn in on Quarry into that ramping way, which improved things greatly. But it's a good place to avoid at pick up and drop off time. I was going to ask also about the footpath between Reservoir and Quarry, because there is a crossing there, but I understand your reasonings why, but maybe in a future round we could have a look at that. And similar to Councillor Latcham, that while the cross grade up in Quarry Street between that ramp up and the corner, and you've done a fair bit of work on the corner as well, is very difficult to put a footpath in there, but you can see the wear marks that people do use it. So I understand the difficulties. I think we probably need to look at that at some time in the near future, because if it's being used, there's probably a demand, but don't know, they're doing counts on that or whatever. I don't know why they walk up there. I mean, you could do the same exercise internally on the school grounds itself, but anyway, regardless of that, they're doing it, so it might be something to investigate later on.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Wilson. Yes, Councillor Rutherford.
I've got a couple of questions before I leave for the next item, if that's all right, Madam Chair.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Stuart, I was just curious as to why Rocky High wouldn't have made the list. Exhibition Street, we've got cars parking all over footpaths there. High usage with all the activity at the showgrounds, and even Lion Creek Road with the sports club across the road, that's unformed also. So there's just so many issues around that school, which is a large school. To not see it make the list, I was just wondering why.
So through the chair, funny you should ask that, Councillor Rutherford, we did have a project that is proposed and been conceptually designed through there, and that looked at trying to formalise some of the parking there, bringing in a footpath along Exhibition Street and relocating that bus stop, which is very close to the roundabout there at Wandle Road, bringing that back a bit further. However, the cost of that, was getting close to exceeding the funding amount here, and council had no contribution towards it and no works that were in that vicinity. So we've kept that concept, and we're looking, I suppose, to submit that at a subsequent round should council be able to have an allocation for funding for footpaths or something that we can use and leverage or for a subsequent application. So we have done a body of work there with an intent for future rounds, but just because we didn't have an allocation at this stage, we've found it difficult, I suppose, to put that one up, councillor. So yeah, it is on our list.
Yeah, so future rounds, but when did you say this one covers through 27? Is that what I...
Goes.
Yeah, so through the chair, there is 4 more rounds, three more
more
rounds
rounds.
additional to this one. So this is just round one, and there's another 3 we'll be putting in for. So I believe the next one's around April next year, but there is sort of $10 million each round they're looking at across the state. So, so there is opportunity, yes, for us to put in the next round, should we have, I suppose, some sort of council contribution we can put towards the project.
Alrighty, thank you, I misunderstood that. And then the other one would be St Joey's Wandle. Mead Street is an absolute, well, all around it is a nightmare, but all around most schools is a nightmare. But Mead Street in particular is almost impossible, because by the time you have cars parked both sides, you pretty much can't, you've only got one way, enough room to go one way with the amount of traffic. So has that ever sort of come to the fore?
So through the chair, no, it hasn't been raised by the school. We'd had some previous customer requests around Herbert Street and congestion there, and we'd worked with the school to make some changes to their set-down zone there on Herbert Street, and that was probably a couple of years ago now. But we've never had any sort of representations around Mead Street. So, I mean, we're happy to talk to the school and consider it for an additional round. For this one, we've sort of come to when the school communities come to council, that's formed the basis for the application. And so that's where these have come from. But yeah, it's happy to look at that as a future application if that's the case. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be fantastic if you could. I know the work at Herbert Street certainly has helped out, but the car park, the school car park is from Mead Street, and it just becomes, it surprises me that it hasn't been raised before now.
Yeah, look, you just reminded me, Councillor Rutherford, of Gracemere State School with O'Shanassy Street and all the roadworks in Laurie Street. Absolute nightmare there. I don't know how those parents, cope sometimes. I think the problem is if they've got to go into the school for something, is even finding a park to not go in and pick up your child, but to park and walk in. It's just seems to be a nightmare. And I just wonder, I'll talk to you about that separately, what they're doing there. It doesn't seem to be the same amount of car parks. Stuart, I was just interested, it's $10 million a year, so we probably don't need to get excited because we probably won't, hopefully we'll get them all, but if we get 1 or 2, I think we'll be lucky. Some of you can go up to 500,000, and I suppose South East Corner, they would have projects to 500,000. We sort of miss out because ours aren't that big. So do you see that happen? Do you ever see any get up that are 500,000, I suppose the question is?
Through the chair, I suppose I'm not closely following the other councils' applications as to what they have, but I know that previously some substantial applications up in this neck of the woods have been approved through STIP, so some significant amount of works have been done I think adjacent councils have managed to secure large amounts of money, but they've also, I suppose, had a fair contribution themselves. So I think that larger 500,000 contribution generally comes with a significant contribution from the local government as well. But our understanding, I suppose, in previous rounds are that the allocation is fairly fair and fairly well distributed across the state. So each sort of district, they go to technical committee and I suppose put forward the project. So we have had luck in previous rounds, so I'm hoping that continues with the ones we're putting up this round.
Yeah. So all through the whole commentary, you've got different amounts for their contribution and ours, but in the commentary it also says that they would expect 50-50 funding. So would that be the case?
So through the chair, yeah, there's been obviously differing amounts throughout, but on Globo, I suppose the contribution for all the ones we're packaging up, or not packaging up, but all the council contributions and all the council projects, they sort of even out to about a 50-50 split between what council's contributing and what we're asking. So that's probably how that's been factored in. In the funding guidelines, it says that it's a preferred, I suppose, to have that 50-50 split, but it's not necessarily a hard constraint on the funding. But the way we've put it up is that these are all the council projects, and as a whole, there's about 50-50 funding for the projects that are being put forward.
That's probably a question to Peter. seeing this as, you know, I mean, they're good projects and $10 million a year is fantastic. But seeing they're our schools, they're our children, and you know, there's so many more people living here, so there's so many more children going to school. And our funding for footpaths has been pretty scarce in recent years. Could we use Works for Queensland funding for this, Peter? If we could?
You could. So the next round of Works for Queensland, we've applied Works for Queensland to footpaths before, and we could do that again the next round.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'd be interested in considering it for our schools. Yeah. Councillor Rutherford.
Oh, it's just one more, if you don't
Yeah,
mind,
sure.
Madam Chair. And I'm not sure it fits into the program at all, but I'll raise it. So it's more about the bus drop-off for Westwood School. So those, they're being dropped off and have to cross the highway.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yeah, no. So they actually have to get across that highway. So I don't know if it would fit into this program at all. Initially, when I was thinking rural, a lot of it is about the bus stops and not having shelters or whatever else, and which is Westwood as well. But the fact that it's on the opposite side of the highways, where most children then have to cross to get home.
Yep, no, definitely a consideration. We can talk to TMR and both their bus services and through TMR Road Safety and look at that as an option for future rounds. Yep.
Thank you.
So I think second to the Bruce Highway, the Cap Highway is the second busiest. And I think, well, our children at Bouldercombe have to cross the Burnett Highway, but it's not near as busy as the Cap Highway. Thanks, Councillor Rutherford. You're going to leave for the St Joseph's School project. Thanks, Stuart. Oh, sorry, yes. Yes, you're right about that. So would someone like to move that? I'll just get the wording. Hey, thanks, Stuart. Really good, very good commentary, lots of information. That the council endorse the following submissions for the school transport infrastructure program, except the White Street footpath project. Would someone like to move? Oh, yes. Excluding. Yes, she's got to come back in for that vote. Sorry. That's right. Because we've just been discussing everything except White Street. So then we vote on that. Then we vote on White Street separate. Sorry, Councillor Rutherford. Oh, that's my trick to see what sandwiches are there. Yes. My goodness, it's 11 o'clock. Yes, so Councillor Rutherford, you need to be here for the vote on that's all the projects except. Councillor Wickerson moves. Councillor Latcham seconded. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried unanimously. You can leave now, Councillor Rutherford. Councillor Wickerson, Councillor Latcham. Sorry, I always forget about the typist. So the last one, Stuart, is St Joseph's Park Avenue footpath project.
Yeah, so through the chair, the project put forward here is essentially to construct a footpath from Main Street through to Park Street. Council at a recent infrastructure committee meeting had resolved to do some median works there as a result of the petition that had come from the community there. And so we're endorsed to do the works at Main Street to do some improvements to the islands there, which are around that $25,000. And then council are proposing, I suppose, to leverage off that investment and try and seek some STIP funding to fund the footpath to connect down through to Park Street at a cost of around $123,000. So within the petition that came from the community, there was a lot of signatories that were representing the St Joseph's School community, and so I suppose that had been part of the premise to try and put this project in under this funding round and sort of leverage off the money council was spending there. So happy to take any questions you might have on that one.
Councillor Latcham.
Thanks, Madam Chair, and 3 years through to Stuart. Stuart, all those other ones we just voted on were all pretty much adjacent to or attached to a school. My question is, how far is this project away from the closest school?
Through the chair, I probably don't have the exact distance on me through here, but no, I don't. I'll have to take that one on notice.
The reason I say that, Stuart, sorry, is I'd suggest that we've done a list of, over the next 3 years, what footpaths we've identified in the region need to be done, and I'd probably suggest that there's probably a lot of other footpaths that are closer to schools than what this project is. So I'm not sure why this project even got on the list.
Through the chair, as I said, it was one of the key recommendations from the report was that it be considered for future pathway prioritisation, and I suppose the fact that council had an investment in that area to do works at the median, and then we could get the rest of the footpath funded through STIP, was part of the premise of that. And through the site investigations, intersection counts that were done there was a volume of school traffic that did walk down White Street, and I suppose that matched what the community had highlighted within that petition. So that's predominantly where this application or this one had come from.
If I may, Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'd probably suggest there's probably many other proposed footpaths that probably get a lot more traffic than what this area would. I understand what you're saying. We're doing some work there already, but I'm not sure that justifies why it would jump to the top of the list because it happens to meet some criteria. When like I said, there's probably a lot more other footpaths that would get a lot more traffic from kids using it than what this one would. So I'm just surprised.
Yeah, Councillor, that's why I made the comment. So some of these have been on the list for years and years, especially our largest schools. Like this one is sort of only in the last month or 3 weeks even, not even that, the month. Yes, so...
through the chair, I mean, at the end of the day, it's an opportunistic opportunity for council to grab $175,000 towards a footpath that council wouldn't ordinarily fund or necessarily fund straight up on the back of a $25,000 investment for crossing. So it's an opportunistic attempt for council to try and drag some more funding in for the community.
Martin, can I just ask, where does the $175,000 come in? We're seeking
Whatever
funding
the
of
cost of the footpath.
123.
123, sorry. So it's 123,000 footpath.
Yeah.
We're just essentially trying to leverage on the back of council's commitment to do $25,000 of work at that median and using that as a council contribution to try and get a footpath that wasn't looking to be funded any time in the near future. So there's no further council contribution towards it. It was essentially just leveraging the $25,000 that council had put forward to fix the crossing point. It was an opportunity to go into this funding program and bring some more funding into council and the community to do the footpath.
Okay, thanks,
Chair,
Martin.
if I may,
Yep.
to Martin. So
Is this
the $25,000 that council's committed to doing some remediation work there, it still doesn't come anywhere close to the 50-50 guidelines to get funding. So
Yeah, but it's been explained before. It's the package of funding that's summing up to the 50-50, not each individual project. And this project had the school raising concerns. We had the money there, as we said. We can get someone else to pay for this.
Okay, and I guess probably what I was trying to say was, but would other projects that are on our footpath list be eligible for the same type of funding?
There's undoubtedly other footpath projects that are eligible. None of them we can point towards a council contribution to at the moment. So there's no other works that we've recently done or about to do that we can use to leverage in the funding application. So this was just an opportunistic. Council last month, I think it was, committed to do this little bit of work on a crossing, so at least we could point to that and say, look, council are doing some works in that area to do with safety or road safety. it makes a good argument then to say, and here's another portion to connect into that. So it's really just an opportunity for us.
Thanks, Councillor Latcham. I'm not sure who was next. Councillor Kirkland?
Thanks, Madam Chair. It's great to see this project being included, and listening to that conversation there, I can understand why it's been moved forward with the footpath there. The other thing is that this is definitely linked to a school. I've spoken to, the principal was away when I was talking to them, but the deputy principal at the time relayed that this is used every single week by students going in a like a snake-like fashion, trying to be safe on a road that's a medium to high urban collector road that should, by the guidelines, have a footpath there, but does not have a footpath there. A whole range of students traversing down to use the Tom Nutley Oval there, which has been pointed out here today. So thank you for that. And also, I do have a question, which is around the trees, and it's not just the trees for this particular project, but others as well. Is there a replacement of trees going in? So where one's being removed, are you replacing them, or is there opportunity to go around them? If you need to, can you go around them? What, I don't know. Help me out there with that.
So through the chair, yeah, where we can, we'll try and avoid the trees. The difficulty with some of these are they're smack bang in the middle of the verge, and it's not a particularly wide verge. So the example that Councillor Latcham gave before, there's avenue to try and avoid them. In some of these, that may not necessarily be the case. We'll endeavour to try and minimise any impact to the trees. And I have to take the question on notice as to whether there's been an allocation in there for the replacement of those trees. But usually the practice is that yes, we would.
Yes, I thought that was a policy thing or something where we remove one, we replace two, or something to that effect. Yeah, okay, thanks for that.
Thanks, Councillor Kirkland. Councillor Wickerson.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I had some similar concerns as Councillor Latcham, just about the methodology, how we prioritise these. Yeah. And I understand the answer that we've got some money invested in already, but I'd hate to see it leapfrog some other projects that are just as worthy, but we may not have money that we're contributing to it. The only question I had was around Lauger Street. I couldn't quite recall, had we landed on a design solution for that, and will that have to be modified? Sorry, will this proposal have to be modified when we finalise that? I couldn't remember. We were looking at different options for it.
Yeah, left
so I guess through
the chair, no, the footpath design won't necessarily have any issues with the arrangement for access from Lauger out onto Knight Street, so won't have any impacts there. There'll be obviously the curb ramps, and depending on the arrangement, depends on how hard it is for pedestrians to cross with conflicting movements, but no, the one design won't preclude the other, and the two can be designed fairly well together without any dramas. So,
yeah, so it's likely to be more signage than cul-de-sac or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Wickerson. Stuart, I know this funding's been around for a while, but I've probably never done a deep dive into it as I have lately, because I wasn't infrastructure before. Seeing the state funding, and they do give a lot of funding to private schools, do they, favour the state schools over the private schools? Because I'm thinking that they might think, well, we give you a bucket of money, you should be contributing to it yourself. Does that ever come into it, private over public?
Through the chair, not that I'm aware of. I think it's just based on the merits of the road safety outcomes that come from the project. I don't think there's a particular onus to look at one or the other.
Yep. Okay. So we've exhausted all the questions and comments on that one. We just need to move this St Joseph's Park Avenue footpath project separately. Can we call it it's actually, well, it's listed as White Street, but in the commentary it's listed as St Joseph's Park Avenue footpath project. So instead of White Street, if we call it the St Joseph's Park Avenue footpath project. Yeah. Then it makes more sense, and if someone's reading it, because a lot of people don't know where White Street is. So Joseph's Park Avenue, just an S on the end. Yes, St Joseph's Park Avenue footpath project. Yeah, just take the street out, yeah. Yeah. That's it. Thank you, Karen. Sorry, what was that? It's apostrophe, yes. Yep. Park Avenue footpath project for the school. So, sorry, what was that? Oh, yeah, cut and paste it into there. Yeah. Just need to put Park Avenue there. Yep, great. Thanks, Karen. Okay, so is someone happy to move that one? Councillor Kirkland? Oh, look, I'll second it. It's for consideration. They're all for consideration, but I think I'm with other councillors and that we hope the ones that have been on the list for a while get up. But at the end of the day, Peter, it is TMR's decision. Yep. And our officers have recommended them all, so obviously they're the ones that have considered them, looked at them, studied them, and from an engineering point of view, they put them all on the list. So I'll put that to the vote. Councillor Kirkland moved, I seconded. All those in favour? That's carried. Did you want to? Okay. Councillor Latcham doesn't want his vote recorded against. Thanks. Okay, so that's carried, and I think that's, we've got no notices of motion, no questions on notice. Any urgent business or questions? Oh, better get Councillor Rutherford, sorry, I forgot about her. She'll be enjoying her sandwiches. Oh, okay. Yeah, and Councillor Rutherford did not participate. So we've got to put Councillor Latcham voted and then did not vote. Yep. Yep. So, yeah, that's the end of our items. So notices of motion, no questions on notice. Any urgent business or questions? Anybody? None? Okay, well, thank you all for your attendance, and I declare the meeting closed. And thank all the officers and everybody else.